Greetings folks, Tim here, creator of the MALSTROM trading card game, and today in this instructional video for visual learners such as myself, I will be teaching you how to play a round of MALSTROM. This video is dedicated to my friend Frank, who has just recently picked up a starter deck of the first edition. Shout out to Frank. Without further ado, let's get into the video and I'll show you what you need to begin the game. So, here's what you need to get started. First of all, you need 1 to 2 decks of cards. One deck includes 35 cards. If you only have one starter pack, that's fine as well. You can just split it in half, so you'll just need cards. What you'll need is a deck of cards, or 2, like I said, 1 coin of any kind, and if you're bad at mental math like I am, calculator, or you can just use the calculator on your phone. So for starters, each of the 2 players starts off with 100,000 gold pieces. Next up, if you only have one deck, you just divide it in half, or if you and your friend both have a deck, that is preferable. And to begin the game, you start with a coin flip. So let's say I'm player 1, and player 2 is sitting across from me, and I say heads, and they say tails. You flip the coin. Alright, so it's tails, so player 2 would start first. And there's an advantage and a disadvantage to being either the first one to put out your cards or the second one to put out your cards. So when you win the coin toss, you put out as many cards as you want, but you can have a maximum of 5 cards on the field, and your opponent then does the same. So the advantage of being player 1 is that you get to put out your cards first, dictate how the game starts, and also you get to attack first. But player 2, who puts out their cards second, also has an advantage because they get to see which cards you put out. The 2 most basic card types are the red ones and the green ones. The red ones are soldier cards, and the green ones are creature cards or beast cards, and they basically sort of fulfill the same exact function. Both of them are bought with a given amount of gold. As you can see here, Goblin Pack costs 8,000 gold, and they have health points, attack points, and defense points, otherwise known as HP, AP, or DP for short. So you must be wondering, what do the attack points and the defense points do? You can keep your card vertical like this and it will be in attack mode. This means that the card can attack or use an ability at any time. Once you put it horizontally though, the card is in defense mode, and it cannot do anything. However, when it is attacked by an attacking card, it will do damage back to the attacking card. So for example here, if we take Master Hoplite, he has 300 defense. Let's say the opponent has Archdruid Ardak, right? And they use Archdruid Ardak to attack your card. Your card takes the damage from their health, so he does 200, so now this card would have 200 health, but this card would die, because he has only 300 health, and this guy has 300 defense points. Now, it does not take a turn for switching your card into defense mode. However, once it is in defense mode, it takes up a turn to put it back into attack. So choose carefully which cards you decide to put into defense mode when you do so, because then it'll cost you a turn to turn them back from defense into attack. Then we have caster cards, which are very unique. You can see here that they're bought with gold, but they also have a mana pool, a certain amount of points that allow you to either summon magical creatures or use spells against your opponent. Now, there are 3 types of caster cards. You can see what kind of caster it is by looking at this little blot that they have here on the upper right hand of the card. So you have green magic or nature magic, white or holy magic, and dark or black magic. Now, you cannot have a holy magic guy and a black magic guy on the field at the same time. However, each of them can be paired with a green magic user. The green magic cards, they can use spells that are both black and green magic, or white and green magic. I have two examples here. Soothing Mend is a healing spell, and both white magic casters and green magic casters can use this spell. For Shadow Dance, this is a spell that both black magic users and green magic users can cast. Although some spells, for example, Holy Disturbance, are strictly for dark magic users. There are also two types of spells. There are effect spells, which have a lasting effect for as long as your caster is on the field, and there are instant spells, which are used once. They have an effect, for example, bringing up health points, and once that spell is used, it just goes straight to the graveyard. Alright, so now let's discuss some of the basic magic use rules regarding these caster cards. You cannot have more than 2 on the field at once, so choose carefully which ones you want to pair up. Like I said before, you cannot have Holy Magic and Black Magic casters on at the same time. You cannot have more than 2 magical creatures on the field. You can tell if they're a magical creature, not a regular beast or creature card, by the golden border and the Capricorn symbol here. It also says magical creature. And you don't pay for these cards with gold, you pay for them with mana that caster cards have. It's also important to mention that only 1 magical creature can be summoned in a turn. So when it's your first turn, for example, and you want to summon a magical creature, maybe you even have 2 casters on the field, but in that turn you can only summon 1 magical creature, and then maybe in your next turn you can summon another magical creature using the other caster, but you cannot have more than 2 on the field at once. So in this game, there are a few more limitations to magic, and it usually depends on what your caster has out. So for example, let's say that your caster card summons 1 magical creature in 1 turn, implying maybe he's like the only caster card on the field right now. He summons 1 magical creature during 1 turn, and then during his next turn he summons another magical creature. If he has 2 magical creatures on the field, he cannot cast any spells at all. If your caster has a magical creature on the field and then they cast an active effect spell, then they also cannot cast instant magic spells. But for example, this one is sort of like a temporary effect spell, I guess you could say. It does have an active effect, but after 2 to 4 turns it expires. So once it does expire, you could cast spells again. But you can't have an active effect spell, like for example, Blessing of the Beast sticks around until your caster dies. So if you have Blessing of the Beast on, that's gonna stick with you. So again, choose your spells carefully. So let's say you only have a magical creature on the field and you don't have an active effect spell. You can cast instant spells freely, for example, to do damage or to heal someone. And let's say you have only an active effect spell but you don't have a magical creature summoned. You can also use instant spells, like for example, Unholy Disturbance is an instant spell. If he has this active effect going, he can still use the instant spell, and then he has a slot free to use more instant spells. Oh yeah, and another thing, when casters are in defense mode, they cannot do anything. They cannot summon magical creatures, and they cannot cast spells at all. So when you're in defense mode, the only thing you can do is deal damage back. Okay, so by now you guys should have the gist of how the magical cards work. Remember, caster cards are bought with gold, and they come with a mana pool. Spells come from mana, you buy them with mana, not with gold, and magical creatures are also bought with mana, and not with gold. Okay, so there's one type of card left, and that is the item card. Item cards come in this nice gold frame. And what they do is they basically serve to sort of boost your character, if you will. You can attach these cards to your character, but there's a few rules regarding these item cards as well. Alright, so here's a few rules for the item cards. The first and foremost rule is you must be in attack mode to equip an item. You cannot be in defense. Item cards are bought with gold, just like soldier and creature cards and caster cards. The use of some items may be limited to one type of card, like for example, maybe let's say this one you can only attach it to soldier cards, so it depends on what kind of card you have. There are some that are strictly for beast cards, there are some that are maybe strictly for caster cards. All I can tell you for sure is that every card that can use an item can only use one stable item at once. Kind of like with the effect spells, it sort of lingers and sticks around usually until your card dies. Another rule is that magical creature cards cannot equip items at all. And yet another rule is that, for example, if you have one of these item cards attached, there are one-time item cards that you can still use, one-time use cards, such as this health potion. So let's say this Ardent Warrior has a Defender's Lance equipped. He can still pull out the health potion, because all it does is give some health and then goes straight to the graveyard. So you can definitely do that. Okay, so now it's time to talk about abilities, because when you read these card descriptions, sometimes each card will have a unique ability that it can do, and it usually relates to the coin flip, which I will also get into in a second. Now, some cards, for example this one, have an ability they can use, which is just used outright. Like, you can just do it. And these types of abilities usually don't take a turn. But sometimes you'll have a card where you see that they have a 50% chance to do something, and usually they're limited to 1 or 2 attempts for the lower level cards. When it comes to the abilities, you really have to pay attention to the language that's used in the card text. For example, here it says that the Ardent Warrior has a 50% chance to do double damage against 2-star cards. So you'd flip the coin to see if he can do double damage, and then he does the double damage. It's sort of situational. But then, for example, this guy, he has a 50% chance to give all beast cards on the field an additional 50 AP and DP, and he can use this ability once. So he can keep attempting it, but he can only use it once. And the way you attempt a 50-50 ability is with a coin flip, of course. You flip your coin, for example, you'll say, if I hit the tails, he does the ability, if I hit heads, he doesn't do the ability. So let's say, you know, this guy, he wants to try doing his ability, you flip the coin, tails, he does it, heads, so he doesn't do it, and that takes up a turn. When a card has 2 attempts to do something, for example, you get to decide between you and your opponent whether or not you think those 2 attempts should be in succession. So for example, like, oh, I flipped a coin, didn't work, so I flip it again to see if it works, and those are my 2 attempts and they're up. Or you can wait for the next turn. It just all really depends on how you want to settle the rule with the person you're playing with. You can do either 2 in a row, or you can have 1 attempt per turn. Also, when you see that there are 2 variables on a card, for example, this health potion restores 200 to 300 health points when granted to any card. You, for example, say, okay, if I hit heads, it does 200, if I hit tails, it does 300, and so your card would restore 200 HP to a caster, beast, or soldier card. Another rule is that you cannot have 2 of the same cards in your deck. You can't put 2 of the same cards out at once, and you can't use the same card twice unless you have maybe a spell or an item that can revive one of your cards from the graveyard. So, no doubles. You can't, if, for example, your opponent has a Goblin Shaman and they use it against your Goblin Shaman, that's fine. But, like, once their Goblin Shaman dies, they can't just go ahead and pull another one out from their deck. You know, you can only have 1 of each card, and play 1 of each card. So there are 2 win conditions in this game. The first condition is if your enemy, your opponent, has 0 gold, or just not enough gold to buy anything anymore. Once they run out of money to buy more cards, they lose, it's done. Or if they have no playable cards, like for example, maybe they have just spell cards, magical creature cards that they can't summon because they have no caster, and item cards, then that is a win for you if they have cards that they can't even play. There is also a new rule that isn't in the official rulebook that I sort of got some help coming up with from my friend Tyler. If you have 5 cards out, and for example, let's say that your opponent takes down 2 of your cards, then they take down your 3rd card, and you don't put out any more cards, and they take out all of your cards to the point where there's nothing left on your side anymore, you have to you're either forced to put out another 5 cards. You have to, for example, maybe, you know, you wanted to just put out 3, but you sort of forgot about this rule, and now you have no cards on the field. So you either have to put out 5 cards, or your opponent can revive 1 card from their graveyard and use it again. You might want to try this cheeky strategy and put all of your cards into defense mode, but 1, it's not a good strategy, and 2, I don't think that should be legal in the game, so you can't put all 5 of your cards into defense mode, obviously. You have to have some in attack mode. Alright folks, so that was a brief explanation of how to play the game. Leave a comment down below if you see any issues with the rules or think that there's something that could be fixed. I welcome all criticism. If you think something's too complicated, whatever, go ahead and just tell me. But hopefully, I think I will be making a video in the future with like my cousin or one of my friends, where we actually, you know, make a video of us playing this game so that, you know, whoever's watching it can better understand how this game is actually played once they see it being played. But until then, I hope that this video sufficed. I hope that this simple run-through kind of helps you guys get up to speed on how to play the game. And until then, take care. Until next time.